Okay, members, you're very welcome to this month's meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee. And just ask Karen to take the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to all members of Environment and Regeneration Committee, you're hereby summons to attend the monthly meeting of Environment and Regeneration Committee to be held in the Council Chamber, Guildhall, Derry on the 13th of March at 4 p.m. And I'll take the roll call. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Aye.
Alderman Kerrigan, I think, is running slightly late, but should join us soon. Alderman Middleton.
Here.
Councillor Jason Barr.
Here.
Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Deeney has given apologies, Chair. Councillor Alex Duffy has advised he will be slightly late. Councillor Brian Hart.
And shot.
Councillor Emma McGinley.
Chalker.
Councillor Rory McHugh.
Shot.
Councillor Patrick Murphy.
Shot.
Councillor Declan Norris. And Councillor Martin Riley. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Karen. I'll just read out the broadcast statement. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you are seated in the lower public seating or media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the press or lower public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and consenting to the use and storage of those images for webcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. If you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website www.derrystaban.com. Item 4, members, is declarations of members' interests. Any member wish to declare? Alderman Hussey.
It's in relation to item 5. Obviously, I declare that I'm a member of the Planning Committee and I'm seeking advice as to my situation as a member of the Planning Committee. With all due respect to the group coming, and I want to hear the presentation, but will that debar me from taking part in the decision making in the Planning Committee?
Through you, Chair, my understanding is this application will be submitted to as a regional application to the Department for Infrastructure. That's
great. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillor? Councillor Barr, Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest in agenda item 24. Strabane Grammar School, Ski Road.
Item 24 for Councillor Raymond Barr. Any other councillor? No? Well, if anything comes to mind, you can put it in the chat box or declare it as we broach the item. That then, members, takes us to item 5, which is our presentation today from Save the Moat. And we have Annie Mullen and John Gormley who are going to be presenting to us today. And I'd like to welcome the members in the public gallery as well, and just remind them that council protocol doesn't allow any interaction, unfortunately, from the public gallery. So very warm welcome to both Annie and John. So whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, councillors, and thank you for inviting us along to present at the committee today. My name is Annie Mullen, and along with John Gormley, we will be presenting for Save the Moat, Save the Sperrins Group. Can I have the next slide? So Save the Moat is a group of over 30 households that have come together under the threat of a large-scale industrial wind farm proposed for the Moat and Mullaclougher overlooking the Ahibrack, Plumbridge and surrounding areas. We plan to constitute the group, and although we've only been running a few months, we have over 1,000 Facebook followers with a reach of 116,000 this week. Our three aims are to stop the Mullacloher wind farm proposal and all wind farm development proposals within all our areas of outstanding natural beauty, including the Sperrins AONB. Secondly, to review call on local and central government to review all wind farm activity in general and to investigate the full impacts of existing wind energy production through direct engagement with host communities. This is because our experience talking to residents in existing wind farm communities is that their quality of life have been negatively impacted and that they have been largely ignored and forgotten. And thirdly, asking for a more balanced, logical and regional approach for the achievement of Climate Act NI targets of 80% electricity consumption coming from renewable sources by 2030. We are now calling on all our elected representatives and the wider public to support our campaign. Next slide, please. The proposed 11 or 12 turbines of 180 metres height is at the heart of the Sperrins area of outstanding natural beauty and in a site of ecological importance. AONBs were introduced to protect the high scenic value of areas of national importance. This is Northern Ireland's wild landscapes. Industrial wind turbine farms have a serious detrimental effect on the scenery and surroundings. This proposed wind farm is at a strategically important location in the High Sperrins and along the distinct mountain face of the Four Mullas walking trail. It is also sited within the proposed special countryside area that the three Sperrin councils, have committed to designating. Yourselves, the council, have committed to protect priority habitats and the Sperrins in your draft local development plan and in all our council policies. This proposed development is inconsistent with several parts of that development plan, namely that renewables should be sited in appropriate locations within the natural and built environment, which does not cause harm to the amenity of the people in the district. You, the council, also have raised concerns that the cutting and drainage associated with the development of wind turbines has the potential to severely impact on the hydrology of a large area of active bog. In addition, development in peatland involves a risk of landslide or bog burst. Can we just click there for the video? So you can see in one of our slides there an area that has been affected by a wind farm proposal and the bog slide that's happening. There has been a number of landslides locally in peatland areas, including the Glenelly Valley in 2017, Mean Bog near Ballybuffet in 2020, and a farm in Glengara, which is on the proposed site for this wind turbine. These wind turbine farms that happened in 2020. This shows that the site is too unstable to endure peatland disturbance to the extent proposed, especially as it is upstream to the River Foyle and tributary system special area of conservation, which has been designated for its features of otters and Atlantic salmon and other priority species. The most crucial feature of this water system that the council must protect is its clear water, which the disturbance of the blanket bog would seriously impact. And as you know, council has responsibilities under habitats regulations to protect SACs. In addition, many priority species are found on or near this site, with hen harriers and peregrine falcons regularly spotted. Many bat species are also found in the vicinity. Breeding wader sites will also be affected, and the flight paths of protected migratory bird species, such as the curlew and brent geese. Placing wind farms over peatlands and in sensitive areas completely contradicts efforts to recover nature and address the biodiversity crisis. Peatlands hold 30 times more carbon than the same area in an Amazon forest, and it seems madness to tear out tons of peatland that took thousands of years to form to erect wind turbines with lifespans of 25 years. Can we click on? Obviously, there's going to be a visual impact to the proposed wind farm, with 11 to 12 turbines of up to 180 metre height. So you can see from the diagram how that compares to the Guildhall. And that is obviously, they're going to be the highest turbines in Ireland. and they will have a major impact on the area of outstanding natural beauty. They will dominate the landscape and be highly visible from a significant distance and from many tourist destinations, such as Glenelly Valley, highlighted by National Geographic for being a globally significant scenic drive, the Sperrins Giant Sculpture Trail, and many mountain tops in the Sperrins and further afield. Can we click on? So we have some very talented people in the group, and they have created some visuals for you to see. So this area is the Ahibrack Road, where a lot of households, there's a lot of households close to the proposed wind farm. I think we might need to click again to get. So this is just bringing you in to there and showing you the moat. That's the moat and the Muller Clogher, and that is the height of the wind farms on it. But also it is the aspect of the turbines compared to where the sun rises and sets. So for the majority of the day, the sun is behind these 180-meter giant turbines, and that will obviously cause a major shadow flicker, not just for the households, but for the community for the majority of the day. And this will affect a lot of amenities in the community, including the chapel, GA, pitches, shops, communities, and community centres. The immense presence of these turbines, if we click on again, can be noted from the entrance to the Balex boardwalk. It's funded by council. So you can see them in the distance. And even then, that doesn't even show the full impact, because that isn't showing the roads and the infrastructure that will be there with the wind farm. But the impact of them and the sight of them will be felt all over our communities. If we click again. This is a Clougherny wedge tomb close to where I live. It's an image that's used by Discover Northern Ireland, but I feel that with the turbines there that it will not be used in the future. So it's going to have a major impact on the AONB. Can we click again? We are very concerned about the impact of the wind farm on the health and well-being of local residents living in the vicinity of the proposed wind farm, and there are many houses in close proximity. If we click for the video, shadow flicker, we know there will be major problems with shadow flicker because of the aspect of the sun and the turbines. As can be seen from the video, the experience can be like sitting in a room with the lights going on and off continuously. Research has shown that shadow flicker causes epileptic fits, and obviously no one, even without fits, would want to endure this in their home. You would have to have the curtains closed all of the time. Noise is another issue. The ongoing noise generated will have a major impact on local residents, especially in such a quiet, tranquil area with background noise presently. Personally, I am dreading the repetitive nature of the noise that could be generated by these monster turbines. Low frequency noise is another major concern, with research showing that this can be carried 10 kilometres and more. Exposures to low frequency noise has been found to cause a variety of health conditions: headaches, difficulty concentrating, irritability, dizziness, tinnitus, sleep disturbance, epilepsy, and cardiovascular problems. This current setback distance regulation for homes from turbines are out of date, with increased size of turbines not being taken into account. There are many examples of families having to leave their homes and farms because the health problems that are caused, and especially from noise. There are a high number of vulnerable adults and children who live and work in our area, whose lives will be affected by the rotating blades and noise, which can cause distress to people with autism or those with noise-sensitive orders. Can we click on? There are several local businesses very close to the proposed site. 2 farms are within close proximity, and their service users who come there would have autism and do have noise sensitivity disorders. There are also a number of tourist accommodation providers, such as Balnasolis Cottage and Glamping site, which is under construction. All of these businesses are located here because of the wildness and untouched aspect of our landscape. Can we click on? Our natural environment and rural assets are recognised as being critical, important assets to Northern Ireland tourism. Only a few days ago, the Times listed the Sperrins as third amongst the hidden gems from across the whole of the UK. Specifically mentioned was the vast emptiness of the landscape. This would not have been achieved if 12 giant turbines, roads and associated buildings was present on our moat. The Sperrins AONB has seen significant growth within tourism, leisure, health and wellbeing sectors in recent years. This allows local rural communities to provide additional income generation for their farming households. It should be noted that locally over 2 million have been invested on the recently launched Sperrin Sculpture Trail and hundreds of thousands in access projects and local walking initiatives, such as Belix Boardwalk and the Sperrins Hill Walking Festival. Much of this is from RDP and from yourselves, the Council, and we applaud you for that. But we must protect this tourist investment by saying no to wind turbine developments in areas of outstanding natural beauty. Pass you over to John. Can we click on?
Good afternoon, councillors, and thanks for coming to see us today. My name's John Gormley, a local resident. I'm going to start off with the business model section, which is based on the Climate Change Act, Northern Ireland 2022, which means that legally 80% of electricity consumption has to be from a diverse range of renewables by 2030. Renewables Northern Ireland stated that 85% of this 80% will come from wind turbines. That is 68% of the total. The Department of the Economy put out some figures for October 22 to September 23, where 47.4% of total electricity was from renewables. So if we get to the 80% target, that means only 20% will be from other sources. Sony, who are the grid operator, put out a yellow alert on the 15th of January this year to say that they were in danger of having to shut the system down, basically. So if we get to that 80%, how often will it be shut down? And why is all the focus on wind, not solar, hydro, wave power, and all the other types of renewables? Some of the environmental consequences of the current business model. Carbon release, when these peat and blanket bog are removed from the wind farms during construction and are normally spread out on site beside the roadways. This releases carbon into the atmosphere and it goes on for many years as carbon dioxide and methane. And bear in mind, methane has 28 times the the global warming effect of carbon dioxide. Will this carbon release be monitored by any government or council agency going forward? Water quality. During the construction of the wind farms, various layers are removed, such as peat, gravel, topsoil. These act as filters for rainwater to take out various contaminants from the rainwater before it enters the water table or the river networks. The dissolved peat from these during construction enters the water system, increasing the amount of carbon in the water, and carbon creates the conditions for bacteria. When it's used for drinking water, it has to be treated usually with chlorine. Chlorine reacts with peaty water to form trihallomethanes, which are carcinogenic. Foundations and roads. During construction, foundations and access roads are often dug down to the bedrock or the water table. Graded stone is used to construct them. This stone facilitates drainage again down to the water table and the water systems such as the foil. As well as that, turbines, and this is not very well known, have a biannual cleaning regime using chemicals which also enter the water systems. Nobody that I know is aware of what those chemicals are presently. So as the number of turbines increases throughout the Sperrins, the contamination from toxins and bacteria making the water unfit for human or animal consumption will get greater. Next thing is microplastics and toxins. Turbines each release up to 62 kilograms of microplastics each year due to erosion of the blades. For example, bisphenol A, which is linked to fertility problems in humans and wildlife. These toxins will enter the water systems and therefore the food chain. Waste products, it's estimated that worldwide there's approximately 80 million tonnes of turbine blades near the end of life. Where are they going to go? At the minute, it's landfill. So, in my opinion, and the group's opinion, the current business model is unsustainable and becoming very dysfunctional as we get towards the 80% target. Repeat damage, one of the first wind farms to be built was Owen Ray, which has now got planning in for upscaling. This essentially is a new farm because using the data from the application, there will be 61, this is a conservative estimate, 61,000 cubic meters of blanket bog and peat will be removed. If you put those on 40-foot lorries, that would equate to 3,000 lorries, which would stretch from Strabane to Limavady, nose to tail. So how is this sustainable in any way? If you're going to repeat the damage every 20 to 25 years. Wind turbine saturation in the spare. Next slide, please. We sent a Freedom of Information request to the Council in December 23, which advised that there is planning approval for 22 wind turbine farms, equating to 185 turbines, as well as 206 single turbines. And there's 2 live applications for wind farms in at the minute. 70% of all wind turbines in Northern Ireland are in West Tyrone. The next thing is wind energy is intermittent. So there may be a surplus electricity when it's not needed, or when there's no wind, or no wind when demand is high. Turbines work at a speed of between 10 miles per hour and 55 miles an hour. Optimum speed is 20 miles an hour, which is the only speed they operate at 100% efficiency. Offshore turbines produce energy 40% of the time, onshore 27 or 28% of the time. A gas-fired power station typically produces 13,000 megawatts for each square kilometre of land used. To produce the same amount from wind farms, you would require 3,400 square kilometres, which is almost the size of all of Tyrone. So that gives you a scale of what the objectives are of the wind industry. Shorter lifespan, gas and coal stations last for approximately 40 years, nuclear stations 50 years, wind turbines only last 20 to 25 years. Battery storage systems are supposedly the answer to all of this. They only do short-term storage. It's hours, not days. Also, these batteries, when they overheat, they can explode and emit poisonous gases such as hydrogen fluoride and hydrogen cyanide. Currently, electricity demand is increasing for electric cars and by and large data centres. If all the data centres that are in the pipeline throughout the island of Ireland, as it is in all Ireland market, it will use 70% of all electricity by 2030. At the minute, data centres use 18%. So the big picture is we need our politicians to develop a coherent strategy and policies around wind turbines, especially in AONBs. Next slide, please. The next section is impact on residential amenity. The group has been in contact with independent mortgage advisors locally, who has confirmed that house values near turbines will decrease in value and mortgages will be more expensive. Depopulation, young people will move away from the area due to health issues, visual impact and house prices, resulting in a permanent decline in the local rural population. Financial. How will the proposed development contribute 3.3 million to the local economy in the forms of jobs, etc.? This is not normally the case. So how do RES quantify this? Planning. The current planning process, with its virtual absence of consultation is already causing undue stress and anxiety to several members of the local community. Consultation, RES has not planned and delivered any meaningful consultation. If we had more time, we could go into a lot of detail on that. PPS 18, the proposal would have an unacceptable adverse effect on public safety, human health and residential amenity, so is contrary to PPS 18 Section A. Next slide, please. Our heritage and ancient past is at risk. The Sperrins region is rich in archaeological features put there by its ancient peoples. These features and their often symbolic settings represent the cultural DNA of the region and are a link between our past, present and hopefully future. Industrial scale developments such as Mullaclougher One Farm would both devalue the historic significance of landscape and key parts of our cultural identity. Beside the proposed site, there are 27 archaeological features, as you can see on the slide there, including cairns, raths, stone circles, tombs and standing stones. The high incidence of historic sites in the area indicate a high probability of the existence of further archaeology hidden and untouched beneath the ancient bogland. The Mullaclougher proposal will give risk to the destruction of significant links to our ancient past with a negative impact on archaeology and cultural heritage. The proposal is contrary to PPS 6 policy BH1 and BH2 and PPS 18 RE1. Next slide, please. Current legislation around all of this, in general terms, you have PPS or PPS 21 for houses, PPS 18 for wind turbines. These represent a major bias in favour of industry and against residents. For example, it's difficult to get a ridge height of 10 metres for a house in the area, but turbines are to get 180 metres, and it seems to be easier to get that than to get a 10-metre ridge height for the house. So that's the big picture. Those need looked at. The legislation governing the noise from windmills is ETSU 97 and associated guiding notes. Both these publications are obsolete. They were produced in 1997 and updated in 2013. The hub height at that time for windmills were 10 metres. Now they're 100 metres plus. So that's how the sound's measured from. So completely inadequate, obsolete. And in general terms in industry, all industrial noise has to comply with BS 4142. Why do wind turbines not have to comply with BS 4142? Currently, there's no legislation to control or manage low frequency noise. Why? As identified in the recently published Nature Positive 2030 report, the twin crises of biodiversity loss and climate change need to be tackled together. Current practice in industrial wind farm development aims to tackle climate change, but at a huge expense to ecosystems and the environment. Are they indeed even carbon neutral over their lifespan? I think in general, politicians need to produce some joined up thinking, strategies and legislation which addresses all these issues and preserves nature and life for our future generations. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, John and Annie, for that very informative presentation. Just before we pass over to members, maybe you did mention it, but has an official application been formally submitted yet?
No, well, they said they plan to have it in by the end of the year at the exhibition they had, but it hasn't gone in yet. Just the full application isn't done yet.
Okay, members, Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thank you, Annie and John, for your presentation. It was informative. passionate, and also thank you for your time and coming today. It's important that we hear from locals. The Sperrins is indeed an area of outstanding beauty. Many of my family live there. I have enjoyed many peaceful days there during my childhood. I just think it's really important, and I think we'll probably all agree on this, that local voices are heard when and if the regional application goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton and Councillor Raymond Barrett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for Save the Moats for coming out here and giving us presentation. I think one question must be asked is, are we allowing more wind farms than is necessary purely for profit? The projected income I see in your leaflet there of this project is 140 million per annum. A landowner typically receives between 2.5% and 3.5% of electricity sales with no investment costs. So it's quite an attractive incentive for anybody wishing to speculate there. Obviously, the site has to be windy, and I'm aware the best sites are coastal areas or the top of rounded hills. So obviously the Sperrins fit the bill. Given the demand for renewables and clean source of energy, turbines are here to stay. However, the concerns raised in the presentation and leaflet are real and alarming and well documented. And I would hope that when this project gets to the planning stage, and I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, any decisions will be based on the very real threat to human life and environment to residents of our very silly Savannah District Council. And not on how much revenue this project can generate. At the time when we have tourism and I collaborating with council to promote the Sperrins as an AONB, it would certainly seem to be counterproductive to have a wind farm anywhere near an area of natural beauty. So just in conclusion, I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. What has the impact been on the community so far, and has it changed your lives in any way? What are your fears and concerns for the future? What do you think council could be doing to help to provide support? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Go ahead.
So there's obviously a number of communities that are affected, Highbrack and Plumbridge and Crana and surrounding areas. Really, it's the stress of believing people who come. I run one of the social farms, and everyone who comes, we had 20 people out there for a walk on Saturday, and they just say, I can't believe where you live. This is amazing. It's beautiful. And just in my heart, I just feel the dread. And I was like, right, but for how much longer? How much longer will people come and say that? And will we be in the shadow flicker and the noise? The noise really, really worries. And a lot of the other community, there's families here in the public gallery that have children who have autism and other conditions, and they just fear for the impact on their life. It's also divisive in the community. The wind farm company are actively trying to create divisions, and the consultation was, to say it was poor is just an understatement. And we have a couple of A4 pages of these things they said they were going to do and they didn't do, and also then trying to get in touch with community groups and bribe them to support them with offer of money. So it's just very stressful and very divisive in the community. And I think just everybody fears that the specialness of the Sperrins is going to get lost between this and other industrial impacts that they're looking to do in the Sperrins. And we were ignored for so long in the Sperrins. And it's only now that tourism is coming to us, and this was our chance. But if you look at that map as well, that saturation map, there's a very big gap in the Mournes, and none of those councils over there would ever let a wind farm be erected in the Mournes, because to them the Mournes is so special. Well, I think the Sperrins is the same and should be given the same level of protection. And what we want the council to do is, when it goes to regional planning, is that they step in behind and they commit and they object as a whole council, because that's what happened up in the Glens of Antrim, where a regional application was turned down, and the comment said that the weight was given to the fact that the council objected to it. So even though it's regional, the council has a large responsibility in getting behind us in the community.
Could I just add a few things to that? I'm an accommodation provider in the tourist industry, and I'm going to have Craig Nagapple behind me and the Mullacloher if it eventuates in front of me. And tourists will not want to come and look at windmills. So that's just another aspect of it.
Okay, next up is Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me, and apologies for my late arrival. I was over in Galvin. But I do welcome the presentation what I heard, and do apologise that I missed your first part of it. But I say I read it in the pack as well. So I say you are taking a stand on this issue, and my colleague has already mentioned that. And I do know the area in which you're you're speaking of, because I was out round. I knew there was talk of this, and I was out round that part, and I was out round that part one evening when it was just falling down dark. And I was out some of them wee back roads, not powerful wee roads to be fair, but you wouldn't have seen another light for miles. You know, you really are out in a particular, you know, a certain part out there. You're not full of street lights or a pile of these lights around about. It is a special area. But again, as the chair will know, and Alderman Hussey beside me will know, you know, we represent the Derg DA, and particularly the saturation of turbines that are up in that Ahiarn and up into that Corgery section and on up above Glitter. So as I say, we know all about the turbines. And again, wind farms are one element, but oftentimes the single turbine can cause difficulties because they are maybe slacker to let, or there's maybe a wee bit more leeway that they can be let into areas and be closer to dwelling houses. So we do know that, and we do have the process in regards to that. And again, there, as you have stated, there's no application in just yet as regards to the planning process, but you're well aware of it, and use all your force and energy for it. And again, there have been elements of turbines have been rejected, and wind farms have been rejected and been pushed on. So there have been successful applications through the planning committee. There have been unsuccessful applications. So if you're continuing with your fight in that regard, but there is to be fair as well, there is the impartiality of the planning committee in here. So in regards, I know what you've mentioned in regards to the council back in that process, but until an application is brought before the council, the planning committee members have to be impartial before what is brought before them. But I see your stand and you're passionate for it. But it is that case to continue to push what can be done. And I do take on board what you're saying in regards to the moorings. It's a different element, and as I say, it is that trying to push the tourism potential, particularly in the Springs. And again, the giants that have been built there up at Crana are a bonus there, and there are ones that are keen to do that loop going from Gorchin and around and up to Dava Forest. But it's that we haven't had that same tourism potential that's been in the, you know, people will go to the moorings and walk around them and camp around them and all the rest. It's not done to the same extent in the Springs, but it's something that has to be looked at, and it's not for your group to necessarily look at, something for the council and overall the councils that are linked in with that to deal with. But no, again, colleagues, it's already welcomed your report. I do thank you very much for giving me your time, and as I say, I see your passion in regards to the issue, but it is something that needs it needs to push. And again, we take on board fully your comments. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Next is Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Chair, and I apologise, I had to pop out there because of a sore throat and I did a bit of coughing. I'm a keen walker and hiker, and I've been up all over the Springs. I've been in the moat, but I've been up Shaw and Dart and all around it, but I'll make it my business to get up to the moat, and that scenery is absolutely outstanding as an area of outstanding natural beauty. So thanks for the comprehensive presentations that you made, and thanks for your group for coming in here as well. You delivered it very passionately, so thank you. And it's important that your views are heard going forward. So just thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And our next councillor is Councillor Donnelly.
Carmel, Chair, and thanks, John and Annie. I'm not a member of this committee, so thanks for letting me in. And I hadn't intended to stay for this meeting, but I was at a previous meeting, but I looked at the minutes, and it came into my head, John, that you had sent an email back in October, isn't that right? And there was to be a follow-up call, and that didn't happen. But at the time that you had sent the email, I took some notes and done a wee bit of research, so I thought that I would stay on this meeting. So I apologise in advance if some of this seems to be a bit out of context, but at that time, following on from yours, and I want to state at the beginning here that I am a supporter of renewable energy projects, but not in the wrong location. And this council, the NI Climate Bill 2022 sets legally binding targets on reducing CO2 emissions, and we do have a statutory obligation to take that into account when determining applications, whatever applications we're doing. We've also declared a climate emergency and published a climate adoption strategy. So, you know, opposing renewable energy projects without justification could draw adverse criticism to this council. And that's not me making a decision on, and I'm not by no means an expert on climate. There is, without doubt, a major problem with the renewable sector, energy sector, and that is by and large it's profit driven, so it doesn't always get it right. But there is some community cooperative schemes, but they are small scale and very few and far between. In my personal opinion, I think, you know, if we nationalise the renewable energy scheme, then it's the only serious way that we can tackle climate change and put in the checks and balances. And there is a question from some environmentalists of whether our planners have the professional competence to properly assess renewable energy projects. That is a train of thought. And in particular, the big wind farms, which can cause significant environmental harm. For example, the poorly assessed Derrybreen wind farm in Galway caused irreparable harm from peat slides, and that wasn't that long. And they went into adjoining rivers, killing 50,000 fish and permanently damaging spawning grounds of the protected Atlantic salmon. And more recent, we did have similar type disasters affecting Mournbeg and the Derg River. But I think that as much as what councillors can do is to ensure that your views and the views of the group are sort of, you know, fully considered in whatever decision making process is there, and that is within the planning system and questioning planners, which only planning committee members can do. And in your email, John, you did raise 2 points, and one was the proliferation of smaller individual turbines, and the second one was the issue of this larger proposal. On the first one, you know, why it is believed that the reason why we have a proliferation of smaller turbines across the 6 counties is because of a historic perverse financial incentive, almost like an RHI sort of scheme, which paid more to erect smaller and less efficient turbines. As far as I'm aware, I think that stopped in 2017, so there shouldn't be as many coming forward. But if there is already a proliferation of these in certain areas, good planning should dictate it, and the cumulative impact should not be worsened by adding more and bigger turbines to a landscape already impacted by existing development. I'm not sure because I don't know the area if that is the case. And of course, again, that relies on the planners to having the skills and professionalism, and not only that, but common sense. They know and they draw the line. But I don't think it's necessarily follows that the big wind farms will follow if planners allow for the erection of smaller turbines. There is an area plan, and if I recall correctly, there is a policy being processed that will identify zones where renewable projects will and will not be permitted. I'm not au fait with that, if I'm being honest. That's maybe something that somebody else can comment on, or something that you might want to check. And on your second point at that time, that if DFI is dealing with this case, at some stage it will have to issue what is known as a notice of opinion, setting out its intention to approve or refuse the application. And this notice will come before the relevant council. So
Councillor Donnelly, I don't want to rush you, but
yeah, I'm nearly done, Chair. And,
okay.
so if the council is unhappy with the proposed DFI decision, it can require DFI to initiate a public hearing before the Planning Appeals Commission. And I believe that, you know, that could be a venue or a mechanism where you can put them concerns to. And Chair, thank you for your indulgence. Thanks.
Just to respond to that and an overview sort of a way, there's other countries and places that are progressed a bit more. For example, in the last month or so, Slovenia has made the distance that turbines can be from homes. I think it's 2 kilometres. Now, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's a significant distance they've now got to be from residential homes. Alberta and Canada has effectively banned them anywhere near people. And only last week, France has made all applications, new applications, has deemed them illegal. And those that are in existence will have to prove that they do not affect the health of local residents in terms of noise, and I think as well low frequency noise. So there are countries that are, you know, realizing that the harm and the damage that these do to the environment and to people. And I think that the overriding thing, as you mentioned, those are zones, that's maybe part of the answer, but it needs to be looked at, and it needs to be looked at in a big picture sort of way by our main politicians. And, you know, there's no joined up thinking on the approach to this. It's all piecemeal. So that's the main thing that I would want to put across, that we need a big overview, and we need to look at the whole thing in detail. And the planners may not have the expertise to approve or disapprove applications.
Thank you. Councillor Jason Barr.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to John, Annie and all the team for coming in here today. As a councillor represents this area of council, I know the High Brack area very well, and the outstanding area of natural beauty that surrounds that area. It can't be undoubted or questioned, no doubt. Thanks very much for coming on today and raising your concerns. It is very important we do hear the concerns from the local people, because that's what matters. That matters to the local area and to the local people. And yes, as we all know, that this application hasn't been submitted yet, but I'm pretty sure that it will be by the end of the year. And it's just to say that, you know, as councillors here, we're all very committed to seeing the Sperrins become a tourism hotspot across this council area, and it has so much potential and more potential to become that. And we as a council, and our view is that we can't seem to be speaking out of both sides of the mouth, in our opinion. So we can't be saying, let's make sure that we have all the tourism in this area, but we're going to put up a cluster of 180 metres land turbines to put into the mix of it. So it doesn't really balance out too well if we're going to be looking to, you know, if we're coming down the line where we're going to back this. So I'm definitely in favour of, as what Councillor Donny suggested, of the proposal of the public hearing beforehand, where these views of the public can be expressed and the views of this council can also be expressed going forward. But I just, once again, thanks very much for coming on and expressing your views, and I'm sure we look forward to hearing a lot more of you in the coming future. So thank you.
And Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm absolutely delighted that there's no conflict of interest and we're able to actually hear the presentation. My own experience of that particular area goes back 60 years, believe it or not, when I was doing Duke of Edinburgh expeditions and around the Sperrins in that particular area. And you're quite right. What I was there witnessing 60 years ago and what the future could hold with this sort of development is day and night, quite honestly. There are a couple of things you mentioned, John. I think there the consultation deficit. Not quite in those words, but I wonder, could you expand on that as to how you felt that they didn't consult properly? And I suspect we're looking that the rationale is it was basically token consultation. And I presume all of the usuals, the community fund and all of that sort of stuff was thrown at people, and it does cause divisions, as Alderman Kerrigan has referred to there. We well know it in our own area in the Derg, where families were fighting among themselves and neighbours fight and all of that sort of thing. And the social impact that this sort of proposal has in an area cannot be underestimated. You've mentioned there are 30+ households in your group at the moment, and I wonder how many in the total area of concern there are and what percentage that is, because if it going by our own experience in our own area, I would have my thoughts too on what would be happening there. One thing, could you also, what's the distance to the nearest house that's actually impacted? And again, very interested in your stats and figures with regard to the carbon impact. And I suppose this is sold to the world that it's a saving grace and will reduce the carbon impact. But you're suggesting that over the lifetime of a turbine, it's far from neutral. It's not even carbon neutral, rather than saving. And that's quite damning on what we are being told and what we're being sold. And I certainly agree. I'm not sure who it was suggested there that given the size and quantity of this particular application, that it would warrant a public inquiry. I think that is something that should be forthcoming in this particular application. But sincere thanks to yourselves for the presentation and to those who have come in along with you there, obviously showing their commitment to your concerns. Thank you.
The first point regarding RES and their consultation, we had approximately 2 A4 size pages in our presentation, but it's one of the things we had to admit due to the time constraints. I think we can forward that copy of the full presentation we had originally planned onto the council members, so we can get that forwarded on without getting into all the details now. It's my understanding, although they move the windmills around, the nature of these applications is they move them around, but I think the last time we looked, the nearest house is about 700 metres from a 180 metre turbine, which is, I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 times the height of the Guildhall. That's the size of those things, the biggest ever in Ireland. Go ahead, Anna.
Just on the RES consultation, there was 2 exhibitions. I did get a letter, a few days before the exhibition, and it was to be in the IBRAC hall. You were searching all the normal Facebook pages where you would get your information. It was remarkably clear out of any social media. So it was sent to a few households, letters that they could come to this exhibition. It wasn't a public meeting where people could talk to them. It was just, you could look at the exhibition and talk to a few staff, and I was getting answers like, but it's in an area of outstanding natural beauty. But sure, we're really at the age of the area of outstanding natural beauty. This is the moat is part of the 4 Mullocks. It's right and part of the High Sperrins. But also they said they were going to advertise in certain papers. Some of those papers didn't exist. They would notify the community groups and schools. We checked. They hadn't done that. So I know there's an expert in the audience, but we have catalogued really the discrepancies in what they've said they would do for the consultation and what they actually delivered.
Just to add to that, the second consultation they had it in Bertie McKelvey's pub, and if anybody knows that, you get about a dozen onto it.
Sincere thanks again, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, members, I think that's everybody that's indicated has got a chance to make a comment or ask questions. So that brings us to the end of that item. So what remains for me as chair of the Environment Regeneration Committee is just to thank Annie and John once again, and indeed the people in the public gallery who came along as well, for the information on the issue. And I've no doubt, if or probably when it seems to be, when there is official application submitted, that no doubt this issue will be discussed again within council. So thanks again for coming to council and presenting. Thank you.
We need lights on, I think, do you think, or? Yeah, we need to turn the lights on. So lights on. Oh, yeah. Turn the lights on.
Okay, members, then we'll move on to chair's business. Few items that was brought to my attention. First of which I want to mention just as the sad passing of former councillor Maeve O'Neill's mother, who sadly passed away on Sunday, Mother's Day, ironically, very suddenly. So I think it would be appropriate as chair of the committee that on behalf of this committee that we would write and send our condolences to Maeve on the passing of her mother. Alderman Middleton, you wish to raise an item?
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'm sure we're all aware of the ongoing issues surrounding the Falcon Valley school site, specifically the most recent of many fires. Could I please ask that a report be brought back regarding the asbestos on the site and the potential damage that asbestos on fire could have to local residents living within the vicinity? I know the residents are really, really worried. It's bad enough when there's a fire in your area, but when there's asbestos on fire, it's a different level of worry. Can I also ask that as a council we continue to liaise very closely with the EA regarding the ongoing situation? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, members, I'll liaise with our Environmental Health Department in relation to that. I don't think that it will be the right committee to bring it back to Environment and Regeneration, but I'll speak to them anyway and see if we can do that. And certainly we can engage with the EA. I think members will note a number of reports over the years in terms of that particular site and I suppose council's attempts to engage with the EA in terms of the asset, and we are aware that they are going through the disposal process at the minute, and I know we've updated members on reports in relation to that, but we can certainly do that, and I'll speak to Environmental Health. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Chair. I have two issues. The first one is in relation to the Rivering Park in Strabane. Prior to being a councillor, I sat as chair of the Rivering Community Forum for a number of years, so it's something I'm particularly passionate about. I just wanted to ask officers, has there been any updates on the Rivering project, and particular in regards to the SEUPB funding? Is there any decisions imminent? And also, I know a few weeks ago, planning application was approved here in council, and a few years ago there was a number of planning issues with both sides of the border, on board Planala and planning here. So has all the planning issues been rectified, including the foreshore licenses?
Through you, Chair, members, I'll try and cover those points. Our understanding as officers is that the SEUPB intend to consider applications through their steering group process, possibly the end of April, May time. That's the best guess estimate that we have got at the minute in relation to that. In terms of the Riverine application, Chair, as members are aware, it did receive the planning approval from Council. We also know that last week the marine licence was also issued. In terms of the foreshore licence, we had an update from Donegal County Council to advise that that was still in the process, that they were confident that that would be received in the next couple of months. As members know, the timeline on that was quite long in terms of going that, but they have not been made aware of any issues in relation to the foreshore licence. So they anticipate that that will be the case. So members hope. Obviously, as soon as we know anything, we'll bring a further report back to members to update members in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. The second issue I have is to do with bin collections in the main street in Strabane. As the main thoroughfare in Strabane, there is apartments at the top of the street, and the residents have to bring out their bins onto the main footpath there. I've sent a few photographs earlier today in relation to that, and I know myself have made representations, including my Sinn Féin colleagues in Strabane over the last while, because it's blocking the footpath. Pedestrians are having to come out onto the road. There, people in wheelchairs or with disabilities are prevented from coming down that footpath, and businesses that are adjacent to it are complaining about it as well. Now, I know technically it's not actually the council's responsibility, but where these bins come out of, they just sit beside a little alleyway, and I was wondering if there's any way that the council could maybe work with the housing association to maybe bring the bins out and put them back in again on bin day. Is there anything that maybe officers could advise or work on and to find a satisfactory resolution for this? Thank you.
Chair, happy to take that. The issue that Councillor Hurt raises is common across other parts of the city as well, that people leave their bins onto the footpath and cause obstructions. Council has no powers to enforce or compel people to have people remove their bins. We advise them that they should leave them out as close to collections as possible and to move them back onto their own premises immediately afterwards. I appreciate that's not always possible, again, given people are working and so on. But where that has happened, we will try to engage with the communities. We will leaflet them and provide information for them. Specifically in terms of this issue, we had engaged with the Housing Association today. And there's a meeting set up for next week that I can provide further information on with the Housing Association, the manager in the building, and some of the local businesses and our teams to try and address that issue moving forward.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hart. Moving on then, members, to item 7 as matters arising from the open minutes of our previous meeting. I'll take them all together, pages 21 to 32. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 follow-ups. On page 24, ER 38, we were informed that reference the Ardstraw to Kesselderg and onward to Lochderg potential for Greenway. A report will be presented to members of Business and Culture in due course. That term always comes in due course. And I'm mindful of the recommendation that we're looking at endorsing a 5-year Greenway plan. And we have the items that are going into the plan, or hopefully into the plan, the initiation for this incoming year, 24-25. And I'm concerned that things do back up. And I'm wondering at what stage at least a report can be, and I know it's outside the remit of this committee, but could officers please emphasise to officers, their colleagues in Business and Culture, that this has been promised and we're just wondering when it will actually appear. That's the first item, Chair.
Through you, Chair, we can raise that with the Director of Business and Culture.
appreciate that, because as yourself and others know, Mike Savage has done quite a bit of groundwork on that, and officers have done groundwork on, so I hope it's forthcoming. Second item's on page 29, and it's Newton Stewart Regeneration. There's two actually on there. First of all, Newton Stewart Regeneration, can I thank officers, and we had that meeting with them, an extremely useful meeting it was, the regeneration meeting that we had. I just want to say thank you to those officers who were there for the input at that. And the item then, ER 50, with regard to progression of Kiln Play Park facility. We were to get an update, and just wondering when that will be forthcoming, and I presume that's from Colin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, Colin isn't here today. I do know that they have been actively engaging between the Green Infrastructure team and our property team in relation to that. So I will make sure that we update members at the very least at the next committee, but if at all possible, the members of the DERG before that. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor McGinley.
Mega Chair, it's ER 51/24, page 29 and page 30. And it was the proposals in relation to the green space at Shandolans. Councillor Donnelly at the time had raised the issue on around Scramblers up at Creva Heights. About 2 days after that, I had met Radius on site, but it was in my role within Shandolans as opposed to council. And I'm just wondering, has there been any engagement with Radius in terms of council, and is there any solutions coming forward? I know that for a couple of days it had calmed down, but as the weather's getting better, we are seeing more use of scramblers on and around the site. The residents are being tortured, and the green spaces in the area are being torn up by them. So I'm just wondering, has there been any engagement? And if there has been, is there any solutions coming forward?
Through you, Chair, members, Colin's not here today. He wasn't able to come to the meeting, so I will take that away. I do know that they have been engaging with the Housing Association in relation to that, but I can't provide an update today, but I will give an update as soon as possible to the members in the DA.
Thanks, Karen.
Alderman Kerrigan, do you want on there?
Thank you. Just briefly, just to reiterate, sorry, comments made by Alderman Hussey there in regards to ER 49 and Tony, and thanks to Tony and the team that we met in the 2000 Centre in Newton Stewart. A very useful meeting, and just as a wee jab here, a wee dig here in regards to ER 50, and as Alderman Hussey's touched on the Kiln Play Park, I know there is an ongoing issue to do with access and legal entry in there. I was in at a funeral. There was a tea after a funeral in the hall not that long ago, and I just took a look into the play park facility as it is. There's a tree in there now growing up in the middle of the play park that's over 8 foot high. So that tells you the last time, and there's no tree meant to be in the middle of it. So that tells you the last time that park was actually used. I mean, it's locked up a good number of years now, but as I say, even just that wee bit of to be fair, I don't see that there'll be much left in that facility that would be fixable. Just very briefly, Chair, it's kind of linking with that on play parks there, but it might not be your department, Karen. There was some discussion, and you would be aware of it as well, Chair, in regards to the way that it's not your end, the way that the items in the play park at the castle site were removed, that they weren't removed in such a way that they could be reused. It was more a digger just went and ripped all out. You know, there was concerns raised by a number of residents, but I understand it's not this department. I think it's more getting in touch with Colin. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other member with matters raising? No. So that takes us to item 8, which Connor's taken for us, and that's the public consultation event on Castledare Recycling Centre.
Thanks, Chair. This is to update and seek members' comments and recommendations on the conclusion of the public consultation exercise with regard to development of a community recycling centre for the Castledare area. Members will be aware that Council operates and maintains several recycling centres across the city and district, enabling the public to dispose of unwanted items for recycling and recovery. One such facility had been located at Kiln, but was unable to open post-COVID in consideration of health and safety concerns in terms of access and egress in the site. Council had sought to secure lands at the Kiln site that would have allowed for the development of an up-to-date facility and address the health and safety concerns, but unfortunately were not unable to agree terms with the landowners, thus preventing any redevelopment. In consideration of this, council has sought to identify suitable lands that can be developed as a community recycling centre for the area, with limited interim arrangements put in place at Spamount. A number of processes, including inviting expressions of interest from prospective landowners, reviewing public lands and facilities offered for disposal, together with lands identified by council through other disposal methods, were considered. All of the sites identified as potential locations were reviewed in terms of suitability, access, locations, etc., with guidance also sought from the planning team in terms of all applicable planning criteria. Of the locations identified, the site of Drumquin Road was ranked highest in terms of potential development opportunities, subject to detailed investigation and on the basis that planning could be achieved. As part of the process, council committed to undertaking a public consultation exercise to determine the views of those impacted by the proposed development. The consultation exercise commenced on the 3rd of October and concluded on the 20th of February and involved both an online process and a public consultation event held in the Derg Leisure Centre on the 14th of January 2024. Approximately 50 people attended the event in person, with 156 responding to the online consultation. Whilst the majority of those who attended and responded to the consultation understood and supported the need for a facility for the Castlederg area, the vast majority are opposed to the development at this location, stating that the facility should be located within the town of Castlederg, and the responses are included in the appendix sent out to members, along with a letter from an ILTIS planning consultation who were engaged by local residents. The key reasons stated included it's an unsuitable location, impact on the environment and rural community, development contrary to planning considerations, PPS 21, safety concerns regarding road access, noise, dust, odours, all associated with the activity. As mentioned, the summary of the responses have been included for members' consideration. At this juncture, the options available include continue with the process, submit a planning application and with determination of this, or B, to abandon the process and look to secure lands elsewhere that can be developed as a community recycling centre. Members will be aware of the need to develop suitable community recycling facilities within Castlederg, as the existing temporary arrangements of Spamount cannot fully address the requirements of the community. Council has been engaging with the legal representatives of the landowner, who will have incurred expenses in progressing the matter to this point. So members are asked to consider the contents of the report and, given the feedback from the public consultation exercise, consider the options for council moving forward on this.
Okay, thank you, Conor. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And I do thank Conor for the report. And I do thank the team for the work that they have put on. It is not an easy task. And I do, even as Conor stated there is that acknowledgement that we desperately need a facility in the Castlederg area. It's definitely needed, but it's the difficulty of getting the appropriate site. Well, how you could be very fit there. It's in the pack there. It's Kiln and it's Killeen there. They're two separate town lands there. You've Killeen's down at Taylor's of Fife Inn. But if you want to be fit, maybe there's a site down there. I just don't know. But beside the meal store there, maybe it's as good an option as any at this stage. But sorry, there's not one there. I was looking through the consultation, as I say, on the other appendix there. Now, to be fair, I didn't count them all, but it seems to be there's 7 pages of consultation, but the first 9 responses are the same on every page. So I don't know what way that is there. It's the exact same 9 is repeated on every page there, the top 9, but it's trying to tie that in. And as you've stated there, there's the see the desire that we need it, but the majority of them coming back that they weren't for it. And I do know that officers maybe got a bit of a hard time, might be a fair comment, at the meeting in the leisure centre on that occasion, and we do see the responses put in there from the legal representatives there, or from what is it, an Altus there limited there, in regards to the issue there. We have that. We do have the difficulty there of it, and I do feel that the grouping that are out there will push this on as far as they can take it. So if we were to go for try to push on this site, I feel that they will fight us the whole way. I just have that fear in that regard. I know, but maybe it's more for confidential. We had a list of 5 sites, and is there any way you can say without, I think I recall the 5 locations, but is there any way you could say which one out of the 5 was this? You know, are there still remaining out of the 5 sites that we did have identified to start with? Or is it the case that we potentially are going out to public again, asking for potential sites to be identified? You know, it's just to see, have we still another one sitting? I know I was trying to get and speaking to a landowner the other day who I believe is one of them, but I haven't got him. But to see would he still be interested? But it's just trying to see what we can do. But I don't know from the response there. I see that it's going to be very difficult to try and continue with this site on the Drumcon Road. I don't see that it's a goer. We did ask the question, to be fair, and when we had a meeting amongst the DARE DA councillors in Strathans Road, was there consultation with a few prominent individuals in that location, and there hadn't been. And then we feel that they're kind of the driving force behind this group and the driving force behind this objections to it. So maybe I know we had to try it, but a wee conversation prior might have saved quite a bit of heartache there and some of that. But I don't see how it can continue in regards to the opposition, in regards to the difficulties. Maybe the officers can see a way through that, but I think that we will have quite a severe bit of objections, and potentially we may not get it. Maybe it'll be pushed on till the appeals commission and drag this out as long as possible. I just have that fear in that. I know there's other potential locations, but you're afraid now with any potential site that you're going to have a number of objections to it and how far they're going to take it. But I still would be interested in that site that we had identified in the town. If there's any way, I know there's another agency or another government department in charge of that, but that is a potential. But that's just a few comments at present. Thank you very much, Chair.
Through you, Chair. Members, I'll bring Conor in a minute in relation to, I suppose, the expression of interest that we had done and whether or not there are any other viable sites on it. But I think really in the purposes of today's report, we really need a steer from members. Do you want us to continue with this particular site and bring it into planning, or will we, if you like, pause the process and not take this application any further whilst we look at other sites? So that's really the decision that we need the council and the committee to recommend to council today. So I'll bring Conor in just on the other possible sites.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, members, and it was clearly articulated that I suppose any site there'll be difficulties with. We understand that, and some may be a bit more palatable than others. But I think from a process perspective, we need direction from members. I'm just saying that so we got clarity to go on this site. If the decision of council today or committee today is not to progress with this, but instead to instruct us again to revisit some of the other sites, we're happy to do that and think there's potential within that. But obviously, because it's a land issue, we need instruction from members to open up. And again, as a team, we're more than happy to do that. And just to pick up, the consultation event is the consultation event. As officers, we attend, we represent council, and that's all we were doing. And again, there was certainly there's no reflection on the community and the area. That's just as an officer team, that's what we had to do, and that's what we will do for any such event. But I take a recommendation from members to say that if they wish to abandon this process and instruct us to look at some of the other sites again and revisit that, we can do that and bring an update report into committee to say here's where we got to, and seek again clarity from members just as how we want to progress. And I'm aware that there are a number of discussions and a number of potential opportunities, but without having that instruction from members, that we can't move them on at this time.
Thanks, Conor. Alderman Hussain.
Thank you, Chair, and very similar to Alderman Kerrigan, and I initially congratulate the officers and thank them for the huge volume of work that has gone into this. And indeed, our colleagues on council, we have sat down with officers looking for a solution. But clearly, the current location, proposed location, is very far from optimum. I think Councillor Kerrigan made the point there that perhaps we could have eased the process with earlier direct consultation with those in the immediacy of the area, because I honestly believe that there is a huge misunderstanding as to what a recycling centre is, as opposed to a dump. Very much so. And that has not helped the process. We're also in a situation where, unfortunately, people dug their heels in. And those heels are dug in, and that's it. And we will face a very uphill struggle if we attempt to carry on with this particular site. Like Alderman Kerrigan, I believe that we have got to look at the alternatives, despite all of the work that has gone into this. And I note in 2.3 that it says we were unable to agree terms with the landowners. Is that correct, or was it one of the landowners as opposed to both? Because there is an issue with your permission, Chair, that I'd like to go back to this item in committee that I have become aware of. If it's procedurally okay to do that. And I believe that I mean, we all agreed at the beginning of this whole process, Killen, if feasible, was the ideal location. And I wonder, should we give up at this stage? Councillor Kerrigan has mentioned the agency site, but also I would wonder, is the Kiln site still one that we should perhaps ask the question again on? But as I say, I would like to perhaps mention that in committee if that were feasible, Chair.
And the minutes. It's raised in confidential minutes, so we can.
Yeah, through you, Chair,
you.
members, perhaps if I take that, members, you know, I think today we're asking you to make a decision in relation to this particular site, whether you want us to submit the planning application or not. Once that decision is made, should that decision be that members don't believe that this site is a viable site and therefore they do not want to continue with the process in relation to this site, all other sites can still be considered. So if members need to discuss something in confidential business, but really for the purposes of today's report, we really need a recommendation from members in relation to the recommendation before you.
Okay, Karen. I mean, as chair of the committee, I'm content that we move the item to confidential. Albeit Councillor McGinley had indicated to speak. Are you content to speak in confidential, or I mean, you speak
I
now
can
if you
speak
wish.
confidential. I'm not a member for that area, so I was going to be quite broad anyway, but just to declare that I am on the recycling working group as well. But I'm happy to take it on the confidential. Chair.
Well, I'm informed that it's more appropriate probably to take the steer on whether or not to
I understand
submit
that,
the
Chair, but
application.
I'm mindful of
Now
what
in
Karen
open
has said.
instance.
The decision, as per the recommendation, would not be relevant to what I would want to say in confidential.
It's just about this particular site. It's, I don't know if we've got enough, member that's willing to make a recommendation.
Go ahead, Councillor or Alderman Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief wee question. It's raised in 4.2 about costs. You know, council has been engaged with the legal representatives of the landowner who will have incurred expenses in progressing the matter to date. Is that point's just in there, or is there an implication that if we weren't to proceed, do we give are we to pay a sum to the landowner for having done work to date to try and progress this? It's only a question.
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, it would be reasonable that we covered the reasonable costs if we decide not to proceed.
Yeah, well, just as a dare councillor myself, this decision has been going on for a long time, and I'm sure Connor and the rest of his team are very frustrated about it. I know I certainly am, as the other dare councillors are, and I totally take on board the results of the public consultation. But my concern just is, it doesn't matter what site you pick, you're going to have whoever lives near it. We're going to be faced with the same situation again. The area needs a recycling centre. I think that's obviously clear from the public consultation as well. But, you know, what do you do? Does any member want to make a recommendation and before we park it to confidential? Right, members, I'm just going to make a decision that we'll re-examine this in confidential, following which members will have an opportunity then at full council to, under matters arising, to either, if they want to make a recommendation or not, they can do so then. So we'll revisit the matter under confidential, so, okay. Item 9 is the postbox consultation, letters to heaven.
Yeah, again, it's to update members on the public consultation exercise relating to letters to heaven postbox in Castledarg Cemetery, following members' decision to endorse a proposal to install the postboxes in all council operated cemeteries across the city and district. Members will recall unanimously approving the above resolution proposed by elected members to install 4 letter to heaven postboxes and associated signage at City Cemetery, Ballyowen, Strabane and Castledarg cemeteries. Whilst the majority of feedback was initially positive, council had representation seeking the removal of the box at Castledarg Cemetery, with those opposing the initiative stating that it is both insensitive and against the wishes of the majority of families with loved ones buried there. In consideration of this, members resolved that a public consultation exercise be undertaken within the Castledarg area to ensure that the views of local residents were fully considered as part of this process. Until the completion of the consultation, the postbox has been removed and placed into storage. An online consultation exercise commenced on the 3rd of October and concluded on the 22nd of February 2024. Approximately 133 responses were received, with the majority opposed both to the concept and specifically to locating the box within the Castledarg Cemetery. A summary of the responses was enclosed within the report. Whilst there were a broad mix of replies, the majority of respondents did not support the scheme and felt that the funding could have been better spent, with a minority of replies supporters of the proposal. The responses also included more general comments on traffic access to the cemetery and non-cemetery related issues, including potholes, street furniture, etc. So given the lack of support for letters to heaven postbox in the Castledarg Cemetery, it's recommended that it is not reinstated in the cemetery.
Thank you, Conor. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not going to keep it moving along here. Thank you that the consultation was undertaken, and it just re-echoes the comments that myself and Alderman Huss had made at the time. So I'm content to propose the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Alderman Kerrigan seconded. Anticipate that's unanimous. Mr. McGinley, sorry.
No, I was putting my hand up to second it, but Derek got on in front of me, so it's fine.
And item 10 is revised dual language street naming policy.
Thanks, Chair. And members just have to stay with me on this one. To seek elected members' comments in respect of a new draft language street naming policy and screening report, both included within the report, and to seek approval to commence a consultation exercise as part of an equality impact assessment process. Under Section 11 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions NI Order 1995, provisions were given to councils in relation to street names and numbering of buildings. Specifically, the council may erect at or near each end, corner or entrance to any of its streets a nameplate showing the name of the street. And a name plate shall erected under this legislation express the name of the street in English and may also express that name in any other language. And a council immediately adjacent to a nameplate erected under paragraph 1, which expresses the name of the street in English only, erect a second nameplate in any other language other than English. At the January 2021 meeting of council, the following motion was passed. Given the increasing demand for bilingual signs to be installed in the council area, this council supports the lowering of the threshold for the installation of bilingual signage in addresses within the DCSDC boundary to 15%. This proposal would require only one resident or their local councillor to come forward with the request to erect a bilingual street sign, and if this was to gain the support of 15% of residents on the electoral register, then this would be suffice to go forward for approval by council. Currently, provision for naming of streets in another language other than English lies within the street naming and property knowing policy. This policy requires the support of 2/3 of respondents to a consultation of street occupiers before an application to have a dual language sign can be approved. It is noted that in the judicial review of Belfast City Council's bilingual signage policy in 2014, it was found that the council had a residual discretion within the policy to allow due consideration being given to the particular circumstances of each application. Based on the presentations at the council meeting, the draft policy contains the following policy statement, which is subject to approval. The council is committed to promoting inclusivity and linguistic diversity and support the use of and visibility of minority, regional and non-Indigenous languages, in addition to English on street nameplates. Analysis of the existing policy implementation indicates that since 2015 to 21st of April 2021, 108 dual language applications have been approved, progressed to consultation. In terms of the consultations carried out to 2021, which have been completed, 67, the average response rate in respect of those identified on the electoral register was 46.7%, with an 86.7% positive response. During 2023, 11 requests were actioned. By comparison, 55 number of applications were completed during 2021, with 22 applications completed during 2022. An average of circa 26 applications have been processed annually over recent years, meaning that it will take approximately 3 years to deal with the existing request, albeit at the time taken may be longer given the requirement to go to Belfast to extract the detail from the electoral registers. Whilst updating the existing policy to incorporate the changes indicated by the council motion, a number of other changes have been included to reflect process revisions and legal advice. These changes include creation of a dual language street naming policy separate from the street naming and property numbering policy, provisions to have street names in different languages in different parts of long streets, consultations to include non-residential occupiers, not just residential occupiers, inclusion of townland names are within the scope of the policy, processes for the handling of multiple language requests, details of council's discretion, introduction of a 3-year period in respect of unsuccessful language requests under the new policy before reconsideration of an application. In respect of successful language applications, the introductions of a 10-year period before a further different request would be considered. In exercising its discretion, and in accordance with paragraph 7.7, the Environment and Regeneration Committee may seek further information prior to making a recommendation in respect of a naming policy. Such information may relate to issues related to the process, demography of the street, stakeholder reviews, screening and impact assessment, etc. Where information considered is required to a potential good relations impact for the purposes of this policy, the E&R Committee will be the designated working group as defined within the Council's Equality Scheme. The most recent meeting of the workgroup, a number of items were discussed and they again were outlined in the appendix. Given the changes to the policy and the potential for the policy to have discretionary outcomes, it is suggested that it is initially implemented for a period of 12 months and the impacts monitored. After this 12-month period, or sooner if circumstances necessitate, members would consider if any policy modifications are required. In recent times, the Council's website has been enhanced to facilitate the application process in respect of the existing bilingual street naming policy. As this policy proposal has potential differential impacts across a number of Section 75 categories, such as gender, age, race and political opinion, religious belief, and there is limited information on which to fully assess the impacts, the policy has been screened in for equality impact assessment, and a copy of the screening document has been attached again as an appendix. As part of the equality impact assessment process, it will be necessary to consult with stakeholders, consider their views before making a final decision on the draft policy. It is suggested that this consultation will take the form of an online survey, a draft equality impact assessment document, and a consultation questionnaire will be issued as part of this process. The consultation will be open for a minimum of 12 weeks as per the Council's Equality Scheme. A review of the equality impacts of the policy will be undertaken after 12 months. A rural needs impact assessment was also completed, and the draft policy reflects the use of townland names in rural areas as well as provision to name parts of long streets. No significant issues have been identified of respect of climate change. The Council's privacy notice will apply and a data impact assessment will be undertaken to ensure adequate controls are in place. Details of the cost of this service by street and district electoral area have been provided again in the appendix. An officer's estimate based on the current level of budget provision that approximately 30 bilingual signs can be erected per annum, although this figure will vary depending on the number of signs required by road area. A budget of 25,000 has been set aside for street naming, with an average of 8,000 per annum spent on bilingual signs, with the remainder in terms of council's obligations with regard to street naming requirements, i.e. erecting, replacing, renewing signage on a district-wide basis. At present, council has one officer working on bilingual signage applications in addition to his other duties, which include allocating postal numbering, maintenance and management of bus shelters, and as such is only able to process an average of 26 applications in any 1 year. Should members have an expectation that applications for bilingual signage should be processed and erected more quickly, additional resources will be needed to be set aside as part of the rate assessment process. This draft policy facilitates compliance with legislation relating to street naming and the use of the electoral register, and work is ongoing in respect of the public consultation process to improve effectiveness, promote engagement, returns and ensure data validity and security. It is noted that a judicial review in respect of the use of language on street nameplates in Belfast City Council highlighted that the Council must give genuine attention and thought to the expressed views of the occupiers, but it is still entitled to take into account other lawful considerations affecting its decision. The draft policy allows consideration of additional information related to unique circumstances of an application. Key to the implementation of the revised policy is access to the live electoral register. Discussions have taken place with the Electoral Office since February 2022 regarding access to the register, and a pilot data sharing arrangement was in place up until July 2023. These pilot arrangements, which were terminated by EONI, facilitated controlled on-site access to the electoral register as opposed to trips to the Electoral Office in Belfast, which will now be required going forward. So members are asked to endorse the draft policy in principle and to approve that an equality impact assessment, including consultation with stakeholders, is approved.
Thank you, Conor. I think you want a glass of water after that report. Councillor McGinley.
Graham Chair. Thank you, Conor, for that report. There is a lot of detail within it. This is something that was proposed back in 2021, so we're delighted to see that it's being progressed. I just have one question. I'm happy to propose the recommendation that's within the report as a first point, but I have one question just in relation to the access to the electoral register and how in the report and within the appendices, it outlines that there may be the possibility that a third party could potentially do that. I'm just wondering how that would work and would there be a cost implication in terms to the council?
Through you, Chair, I'm happy to address that. Yes, there would be a third party cost implication. The suggestion that was provided to us that we maybe could have used a paralegal or maybe another council potentially to access that information, because our geographical location is obviously the problem issue. And as part of our pilot, what we were actually looking at was a digital access arrangement which was managed. But as I say, the only terminated that pilot on the basis of, as I say, their issues in terms of data security and their resources. So as I say, there is definitely a resource implication, but basically it's going to cost us if we do it or somebody else does it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Well, obviously that'll be ironed out as the proposal goes forward. And as I say, I'm just happy to see it coming forward. My wee nephew's at an Irish language school and coming out into the community and seeing the Irish language within the street signs, shop signs, everything else is so important and something that we feel very, very strongly about. So as I say, I'm just delighted to see this progressing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma, and Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to second that proposal.
Okay. Now our member, Councillor Alderman Carey.
Thank you very much, Chair, for letting me in. Just a wee question there, but I think you have kind of touched on it there, Conor. I still have the issue in regards to 2.3, the 15%. I believe it's too low. It was 2/3, it was 67%. But I still think, 50% plus one would have been a fair percentage there. 15% is too low. So in that regard, I will not be supporting the proposal. I would ask, there was a couple of wee items in there in regards to it. Sorry. Yes, we did have a discussion, but it was deemed, I think it was deemed as not linguistically appropriate. And that was, we did mention demographic changes, and we did mention the possibility if an application came in to revert back to as it was prior to a language, if there was an area had changed and people had moved away and different individuals had moved in. But we were told that that was not being allowed, or there was no facility in the policy that would allow if it was deemed appropriate, or if it was deemed an application came in, if a language is selected, it can't then revert back to one language rather than a dual language. When a dual language sign is put up, a dual language sign is up. There's no mechanism within the policy here to revert back to a sole language again, if that is requested. Further to that, then I do have slight concerns in regard there, but I know it's stated you'll take consideration in regards to business owners' opinions, but they're not going to be part of the poll. If you're talking into towns and street and businesses there on a street or whatever, there may be very few residents, but it could be a street that would be majority business owned, and they may not live on site. They will be paying the rates on the street, but they're not going to have the decision or have any impact effectively on the decision whether a street name is changed. So I do have concerns in regard to that. I know it says it'll be considered, but it doesn't. It says it'll not be part of the vote. Then we had again, or maybe that's part of it in here. In regards to 3.5, it says details of council's discretion, but maybe that is that part of the discretion, and whose discretion does that fall on? Is that on to members? Is that on to officers, or whose discretion effectively? And I personally feel that when an application does come in from whoever, be it a councillor or be it an individual, that the elected representatives from that DA should be informed that an application is in. And just a final wee question on the dual language policy. Just a wee question, how many different languages have been applied for to date? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. A few queries there.
Through you, Chair, and hopefully I'll have picked up all of these correctly. In terms of the draft policy at the minute, there's provision that, it basically says that we wouldn't consider an application for an alternative name or language whenever there's a decision being made up until 10 years has passed. And it was basically done in the context of, efficiency and resource management, because as I say, probably the worst case scenario would be to get an application one year and then the following year another application, and the cost implications of that would be problematic. And indeed, we envisage that the lifespan of a sign would be 10 years, so hence the 10 years. So as I say, once a decision is made, it will not be reconsidered again for 10 years, and that's the proposition that's there in front of members today. In terms of the motion itself, the motion was very explicit in terms of its wording, that the threshold was 15% of those residents on the electoral register. The legislation itself requires us to consult with those affected, and that would include domestic properties. So therefore, as I say, because we're guided in the policy by the motion itself, the 15% is key in terms of getting that threshold met. But that having been said, we're very cognizant of getting the views of the wider stakeholder base, and that could include, as you've highlighted there, business owners. Now, and that's where the issue of the discretion comes in, because indeed, as I say, there is discretion within, as I say, the policy, in that whenever the information comes back in terms of the consultation, members may have views in terms of not only residents, but also the commercial sector, and indeed may identify information gaps. So that discretion allows members to consider whether they want to take other factors into consideration or address other information gaps. So that's the application of the discretionary. And indeed, in terms of the final point that I've got is about the form, informed about the application process. And I think in the discussions of the working group, I mean, I think it's accepted that we'll embed within the process itself, providing details with members of what's been progressed, so that there's transparency around the process. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Follow up. I don't think my question's answered though. You know, I do take on board you've stated there in regards to the discretion is vague, and it's intentionally vague. But it's just that case of it's still that case of for business owners who are often larger ratepayers than private dwellings, and you know, they won't have an impact on it. Should they be for it? Should they be against it? It's just it's the common sense of they're paying more rates and they're not getting an input here. They're they're not. Are they even getting a notification of it? It's only residents that are getting notified of it. So I have concerns in that regard. I still have concerns in that, and that bit there. But I'm still not getting the point there that I still don't have the issue that we are notified, that the elected representatives and the DEAs are not notified. We do get the meeting when it comes in on a meeting pack. You know, a recommendation either for or against a thing, but we're not being notified prior. We're not being notified when an application comes in, because I understand an application sets quite a time with the officer, with I know they have agreement. It sets quite a time there because it's quite a workload there and to get everything sorted. So there's a period of time, but I'm still not saying, are we going to be notified that there's an application in your DEA? That's the thing I would prefer. And again, it's still not touching upon you have raised the element of the 10 years, and I accept the 10 years, there's no issue there, but you're not touching on the fact that if there was a request to reduce, it may never happen, but if there's no policy and there's no element in the policy or no mechanism that if it wanted to be converted back, they can't do that. That's the current policy. That's if we're just doing that, if that's not there, plainly say it, it's not there. I'm not getting an answer.
Think through you, Chair, and Ellen's covered this somewhat, and I'll try and see if I can be clear on it. I think obviously what we're proposing in the policy in line with the notice of motion, and the notice of motion specifically says 15% of those on the electoral register, and therefore that's the reason why the policy has been developed in draft, and clearly is for members to decide whether or not they want that policy. I think in terms of the discretion then, what Ellen has suggested is that because we want to get the wider views of stakeholders, that will be why the wider stakeholders, including the business community, would be consulted, and their views then could be taken into consideration by elected members in terms of when they're making their decision. And in terms of, I suppose in terms of notifying members, what we would propose to do, members, if you are happy with it, we can bring in a monthly report for members of applications that are ongoing, and therefore elected members will be aware of what applications we are currently considering, and therefore will have the opportunity to engage with any stakeholders if that's what they wanted to do. I think I've covered all the points, but I don't know if there's anything remaining.
I don't think we're going to get any further. That's all right. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McGinley.
Mega Chair, I just feel that every time we talk about dual language signage, there's objections from the same people and the same comments and the same remarks, and it doesn't seem to be moving anything forward. Since I've been in council, since 2021, it's been the same remarks that have been made from the same people, which I just find sad, to be honest. In terms of members being notified, we are notified whenever they're brought forward and they are reports in this committee. So I don't understand the rationale for asking that question. Also, the previous threshold was 2/3 of respondents, not 2/3 of people that lived in the streets. So if you have one person responding, that's 100% response rate. So this is actually potentially going to make it a wee bit more difficult, but we are wanting to represent the views of people who want dual language street signage. Nobody's you know, suggesting that it's going to be imposed upon anybody that doesn't want it, and everybody has their opportunity to respond. So I just think a bit of respect for the communities warranted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McGinley. I'm going to wrap this up and take the vote shortly. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Kerrigan, I would have imagined the 50 plus 1 is the logical aspect of it. Before I make further comment, can I ask a question? If a survey is done and you have 15% of your respondents are in favour, but within the survey you would have maybe another 33% who are not in favour, does the legislation allow then that the signage goes ahead?
Through you, Chair, members, and I'll ask the officers to come in if I'm speaking out of turn, but basically the way in which the notice of motion came through and our policy would be if 15% are in favour, then we would go forward. However, clearly the elected members, when they consider the application, that would be at their discretion, considering all of the information that's brought before them. So really, when we do our engagement, the report will contain all of the relevant information that will enable members to consider whether or not they want to go forward or not, depending on the circumstances of each application.
You, Chair, just on the back of that, thank you for that clarification. And I think the last thing we want in this council area is a sign going up and the next thing it being removed or painted over or anything like that. So this is where you want to have a better cohesion, shall we say, within applications that are coming forward. And that's something, I mean, as somebody has already said, I don't think anybody has anything to fear from a language going forward, despite some people's opinions. And it's simply a matter of trying to clear the way, or Fahabala, the way forward, that we can have an acceptable and non-contentious situation within our council area. I suppose a further issue then, you talked about languages there. I did notice in the further expansion of the policy, Welsh and Cornish there. So does that mean that somebody like myself, who was born in Cornwall, could put in a request for my road to have a Cornish sign on it? Because I think we're talking about more than Irish or Ulster Scots or whatever, aren't we?
Through you, Chair, members, the policy would leave it open for an application in any language.
That's grand. And I presume there are minority communities within our midst, Romanian, Chinese, whatever. Yep, that's grand. Thank you.
I just want to come back, and I don't think Cornish is an indigenous language. You know, Irish is the language of this country, and if that's...
It's an indigenous language within the
Chair,
British Isles.
Through the chair. Okay, members, I think it's been debated enough there. It's been proposed and seconded by Councillor McGinley and Councillor Murphy, so I'm going to ask Karen to take the vote because obviously it's not unanimous.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Hussey?
Abstain.
Okay. Alderman Kerrigan?
Go against, Karen.
Okay. Alderman Middleton?
Against.
Councillor Barr?
Or
Councillor Raymond Barr? Councillor Boyle?
Or
Councillor Deany's absent. Councillor Duffy? Councillor Hart? Councillor McGinley? Councillor McHugh? Councillor Murphy? Councillor Norris?
Or.
And Councillor Riley?
For.
Thank you. So that's 10 for and 2 against and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Okay, members, then that's on to our next item. Item 11 is the updated Legionella control procedure.
Chair, can I propose the recommendation? All of the stuff there is within the approved code of practice that's followed everywhere. and indeed the technical guidance documents, etc. So I propose the recommendation.
Okay, proposed recommendation by Alderman Hussey, seconded by Councillor McGinley. All in agreement, yes, okay. That takes us then to item 13, or sorry, item 12, street naming and property numbering.
Yeah, again, to advise and seek members' consent to name of the.
Proposed, Chair, proposed.
Happy to second.
Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor McGinley. Okay, so item 13, members, is the grant of right of burial.
Opposed, Chair.
Opposed, Councillor Riley, seconded Alderman Hussey. Okay, members, items 14 to 20 are for information, so I'll just go through them one by one in case any member has an item or a question on it. So item 14 is the proposed disabled parking bays. Go ahead, Martin. Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Chair. And I suppose it's the issue to do with disabled parking bays. And these are new applications which are no issue with and welcome, I'm sure, for the people that have applied for them. There is a concern, though, Chair, around the existing parking bays that have been granted already and the fact that they have not been remarked. Paint erodes from the road surface. So we have a situation where there are people who have a bay designated for them outside their home, but the road marking has worn off and DFI are not in a position to have it repainted. So I suppose through officers, could we ask DFI for an update on their budget for that particular line marking and to encourage them to make sure that those existing bays are lined appropriately and consistently to ensure that the provision that is given is there for everyone to see. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, that's no problem, Councillor. Item 15 is the mobile update, and Karen wants to comment on this item.
Yep, through you, Chair. Members, just to update you that as you're aware in the report, we had written to DAERA in relation to requesting them to come to meet with members in relation to the notice of motion at the council meeting. That we just yesterday received a letter back from the DAERA officials, which I will send out to members. They said they unfortunately aren't able to make the committee today, but Richard Crowe and Claire are happy to accept the proposal to come to the 17th of April committee. They also state in their correspondence that given the complex nature of the questions that are being asked, they would also offer the opportunity for members to attend a workshop on the process, and they have advised that they could facilitate that week beginning the 8th of April, which is the week after Easter. Now, members, again, today is just to take a steer from members. Would that be useful? I have asked Kerry, my PA, to engage with member services, and she says, has come back to me to say that that would be possible to facilitate a workshop for members. So it's just to get a steer from members. If, you know, obviously they are going to come to the committee in order to take members' questions, but ahead of the committee, would members find it useful to have a workshop? And I'm happy to take members' views on that today.
First indicator is Alderman Middleton.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and thanks, Karen, for the comments there. We as a party welcome DAERA coming in. It's a shame they're not here today, but look forward to answers and maybe a wee bit of clarity. I personally would like to attend a workshop. I'm sure some of my colleagues would as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Raymond Barrett.
I think that'd be useful as well. Chair, thank you.
Just spoke. Sorry, Councillor Alex Duffy.
I go me good Mayor. Mayor. Chair. Not yet, really. Not yet. No, thank you. And thank you to DAERA as well for responding responding positively. On behalf of Sinn Féin, we're happy enough. And as far as we're concerned, knowledge is power. So any information that members can gain from the wee workshop they're going to do, then fantastic. And thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Norris?
Exact same here. The SDLP fully supports that. Any workshop, I've been to all them stakeholder meetings are very informative, you know, so it's good to go to.
Yeah, and sorry, members, just for your additional information, and Connor's just reminded me, if you recall the notice of motion in relation to appointing a consultant to undertake a review of DAERA's optimum remediation strategy, just to advise members that that process is now live to begin to consider the consultant, and we'll bring a report back to members once that process comes towards the conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, members, item 16 is annual CPI uplift and burial costs. Item 17 is, sorry,
16.
Councillor Norris.
16, just
16,
very,
Alderman
very briefly.
Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. I'm content enough for the residents, but I do think we have a wee bit of scope there to increase the price of a grave in regards to non-residents. I was speaking to ones and they're on about this Roselawn Cemetery is £4,000 and their cemeteries up around there Cumber at 1,500. And I mean, we're chanting £400 for non-residents. They're not, and it's the one bite at the cherry, I suppose, if we're getting at there for that fee, and then we have to maintain the cemetery. I do think it's something that should be looked at, that we should be increasing the non-residents. I'm content enough with the residents' graves, but non-residents must go up.
Through you, Chair, members, we're happy to bring a further report in relation to that, and certainly members can consider it as part of the rates estimates process. Thank you.
Okay, item 17, Councillor Norris.
Thank you for bringing me on. Karen, I had asked a couple of months ago about the consultant that it's either DFA Rivers or Love Me Water, you know, about bringing them into chambers. Is there any comeback in that, or no?
Sorry, I'm trying to remember. Did we agree that we were going to invite Rivers Agency and the committee?
Well,
Sorry.
it was more the consultant. There's a new consultant
Mhm.
employed. We don't know who that consultant is, you know.
Yeah.
And looking at the groundwater
Mhm.
and the whole sort of, all the water, but I think around the groundwater and that, and was just really maybe, yeah, and hey, we could extend that even to a multi-agency, you know, and I know Anne had looked about a multi-agency meeting, you know, with the residents and that, you know, so maybe it could be more wider to the councillors as well.
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, I'll look into that, because I think I think that, as you quite rightly mentioned, our emergency planning team have been taking forward a lot of the actions. I know we tend to report the updates and through ENR, but I'll liaise with them and see, and then come back to you specifically on that. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be careful not to call you Worship Master or something like that. Moving forward on flooding, whenever the additional money was announced for potholes, I was out on the ground with DFI roads person, and we were talking about the extra money for potholes. But he warned me, he said, there's a danger that funding for the regular things that go on, such as gully cleaning, particularly in the rural areas, may be very much under stress. Could we have that clarified from DFI, that funding for flood prevention measures such as gully cleaning, etc., going forward will be in position the same as it has been last year and the years before? And even then we have issues with it, but at least that there's no deduction in that service that's provided throughout the district council area. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, happy to clarify that with Dave.
Item 18 then, members, is the update in the Peace Plus programme, the War Memorial and Historical Cemeteries aspect. Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, Chair, it's just with regard to the levelling up works in Castleberg, the Diamond, and the War Memorial proposals. Are those coordinated? That, you know, each of the teams knows where they're fitting into the overall process within that. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, members, yes, that's absolutely the case.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you. Again, Alderman Hussey's asked the question, but I'm assuming that's as well making the the Ernie site safe as well would be included in that, because the older site of the Ernie graveyard there's not, there was a potential fallen debris and all that. And
Okay, item 19 then is improvement safety in high-rise residential buildings.